Okay, so I am heading out to do a little bit of shopping, and sometimes this is how I get back into my novels is I go shopping and I get all the tools and all the fun stationery things that I need to get started. So let's go. Okay, so we did a little bit of shopping today. I'm going to show you exactly what I picked up at Target. But for me, whenever I am trying to get reconnected to a story that I've taken a little bit of a break on it, sometimes it's something that I've taken a break on for a month or two, and sometimes it's a story that has been a couple of years that's been sitting there. So I do have a story that I'll be working on hopefully later this year that I haven't worked on since I was pregnant with Evie back in 2019. So that will have potentially a different process to get back into after so long. But here's what the basic process looks like. I find that when I'm getting back into a story, especially if I've had a break completely from writing altogether, I have to mentally get myself excited for the process. So this part might seem completely superfluous for those of you that really would rather just like, why don't you just sit down and start writing? That's totally fine if that's what you prefer to do, but I thought I would share my true process just in case it sparks something for you. But for me, I need a day of getting myself excited again for the project. And for me, if you've been around on this channel for any length of time, you know that means getting my tools together, my stationery, getting all my supplies together, starting to get really excited. Sometimes it also means running errands and getting things off my brain and off my to-do list that have been sitting there for quite a while. So for example, one of those is that I have this DJI Pocket 2 Creator. I used this for all of my vlogging during NaNoWriMo, and then Evie put this gimbal in her mouth that got the whole thing messed up. And so it's just been a dead $500 camera sitting in my closet since November. And I did have the Geek Squad protection on it, but I just hadn't gone to get it done. So that's like one of the things. Plus I had some things I need to mail out. I had some stuff I needed to get from the grocery store. We've been in quarantine for 2 weeks. I also have been wanting to get some new workout gear. I have officially lost 30 pounds since this time last year, and I'm starting to wanting to get back into kind of working out, and we're going to be moving into our new house, and that means like lots of space to be running, and we're going to be out in nature. It's going to be awesome. So I got some new workout gear. None of that stuff is directly related to my writing, but it's just a matter of I have that to-do list and everything's getting checked off so that I feel I'm building positive momentum of I'm getting things done. I'm getting ready to be productive again, and I'm kind of waking myself up, if that makes sense. So let me show you some of the tools that I got. This is a combination of things that I already had and some things I kind of replenished to get started on the books. Now, I will go ahead and just preface this by saying, if you're new here, I am currently writing a series that has 4 main points of view. And then there will also be 2 to 3 points of view in this particular book that are main POV characters, but only have a handful of chapters. And I like to make sure that I color code all of my story notes, my index cards, everything according to those main, especially those main 4 points of view. When I am choosing what colors I'm going to use for a color code, one of the first things I do is, instead of trying to just pick the colors that I like or that I feel represent those characters, is I make sure that I'm choosing things that are easy to find. So for example, if you're going to be able to find a pack of Post-it notes and you want to use Post-it notes, make sure that you're picking a color code where you can readily get those colors. So like a teal character might not be a great color to use, whereas you can definitely always find like purple or green or yellow Post-it notes. Same thing of when you're going to use pens, again, like teal or rose gold, you might not be able to find pens readily available in those color codes. But if you use just your basic type brush pens like this, or super tips or whatever, you're always going to be able to find things like red, purple, green, blue. I don't tend to actually use yellow, even though you can find them in these Post-its pretty easily, because I find that you can't really read yellow pen on a paper. So if anything, I'll use orange sometimes and instead of yellow. But my 4 kind of go-to colors always tend to be red, green, purple, and blue, because those are easy to find in almost every single pen set, every single Post-it set, page flags like this. You can always find those colors. They're usually easy to find. So here's what I bought to get started. Okay, so main tools of the trade, index cards. I always need these. At Target, they have these unruled index cards for 50 cents, 49 cents. So I grabbed a couple of them. And then I also did get this larger set of ruled index cards. These were like 89 cents. I'm not sure. I kind of have some ideas of how I might use them, but I might not even use these for the story, but we'll see. I do have index cards, but a lot of these are already written on, and I'm kind of starting fresh. And this is something that I find when I'm getting back into a story. If I have old notes, sometimes it helps me more to rewrite my notes than it does to work off my old notes. I still will use these as reference, but I do like to kind of re-immerse myself. I am a very immersive writer. Once I get into the story world, I like to just marinate in it and live in it and stay in it as deeply as I can. And when I've been disconnected from my notes for a few months, I find it just so much more helpful to recreate my notes and start over. So that is why I bought new index cards. Just as a tip, I do love to hole punch the index cards on the edge and use these little book binding rings that you can find pretty much everywhere, like Target, Office Depot, Staples, Amazon. And I get the 1-inch ones, and then you can just make a little ring of your note cards if you want, but you can also just throw a rubber band around them, and that's fine too. This way they just don't get out of order, especially if they've been sitting for a month. I also grabbed a new set of Post-it notes, and this is what I was talking about earlier, this is a pretty common color combination for Post-it, to have these 4 or 5 colors. Sometimes you can't always find the red, but I did actually happen to find the red. And I'm almost out of some of my other ones, so I had to get a new set of them. And just 1 pad should be enough for me right now. I also grabbed these page markers, which I'm going to use on my index cards. The only thing that's sad and disappointing here, I mean, it's really just a small issue, is that they never have these in the red color. They have pink, they have orange, but I've never ever seen these page flags in red. Now, you could take a pad like this and you could cut it down if you wanted to, but I probably will just substitute in another color, like I'll just use the orange instead of the red, and it'll be fine. So that is all that I actually purchased at Target. There are so many cute pen sets and everything else, but I have plenty of pens. So I just kind of got my pens together. So let me show you kind of what I love to use. These are called the Zig Clean Color Dot Markers. I will link these down below. You can get them at places like Jetpens or at Amazon. But what I love about these, and you've probably seen people using them before, is they have just this, I don't know if I can get a better look of it, but they have just this little edge here that is a little dot. And so when you want to make a color code list, you can just make a little dot. Just super, super simple like that. And these come in basically all of your just basic colors. So it's easy to grab these in those same 4 colors of my color code here. So you can see they have them in the 4 colors that I use for my main color code. So then if I'm using just plain white index cards, I can, when I'm ready to start like a chapter for Harper, who is purple, I can just take this little dot marker, put a purple dot on the edge, and then write her notes here in a purple pen. I particularly like to use these Pilot G2 pens, or I also, if I feel like using a felt tip pen, I'll use these Emmett ones, or you can just use literally anything you want. I also have this multicolor or multi-pen. This is something that I got at Jetpens, and I like using this, and I have it already loaded up with the 4 colors that I use most in my color code, so that if I'm on the go and I only want to take one pen and my note cards, then I just have all the different colors of ink that I use. And this is just another part of that tip of like, when you use 4 basic colors like purple, red, green, blue, they're easy to find for any kind of pen set. So I highly recommend choosing those kind of basic colors. But I can just put a dot on here, use my colored pen, write Harper's notes on here, and it's always going to have that particular kind of color code to it. And I love being able to use that. Another tool that I will often use is washi tape, and I like to use in particular skinny, colorful washi tape. This is a cool set from MT that I got at Jetpens. I'll link it down below. The red is kind of a more burgundy color, but it does have the blue, it has the green, the purple in this set. And I just like using this. And what I tend to do with the washi tape is I will sometimes create little tabs here so that I can easily go to this set of notes or, you know, anything like that. If I am writing in a notebook, I can just tab the edges with the washi tape. I also can use the washi tape in my actual plotting notes if I want to have an entire page here in my notebook that is just about Harper. I'll just put a set, like a strip of the purple washi tape along the edge so that when I'm going to look through the book, I can see which pages are marked with Harper's POV, or it's just at a glance I can see Harper is separated on this page from Leah's point of view or something like that. So I like to use the washi tape for that. Another thing that I will sometimes use for marking the pages is just page flags like this. So I got these from Amazon. If only this was a purple page flag, it would be like the perfect set for me, but it has yellow instead. So when I need purple, I will use this Post-it one over here. And I do the same thing there, that if I'm really paying attention to where my notes are for Jackson's POV, I've got either this sticking out or a piece of washi tape sticking out. Another set of things that I will often use is either brush pens like this, or if you really want inexpensive but tons of colors to choose from, Crayola Super Tips, because these do have kind of a fat, thick edge to them. And I will use it very similar to this, where I will make headers, or I'll just put, similar to the washi tape, if I want to mark this entire card as something for Airden's point of view, I'll just take that red marker, or a brush pen, something thicker than just like a, you know, regular pen like this, something that has a more brush edge to it, that you can see this has much thicker edge to it. And I will mark the page with a big swath of that color. It's just a way to train my eyes that when I'm flipping through, I can be like, oh, there's an Airden page, or there's more of my Jackson notes, and I can keep them together. If you don't use colorful notes and this doesn't turn you on and get you excited, it's not like my books are better because I use this. It's just more fun for me, and this is the way that my brain works. And I find that the more of these types of tools that I use, the more excited I get for my book, which then gets me really excited for what's coming next. I will link these down below as well, because I tend to use the crap out of these. So this is an entire set basically of little tiny 1/4-inch round stickers. Now, if you have these little dot markers, you don't necessarily need stickers too. So this is kind of a little bit redundant, but I use them in different places. So if I'm using the dot markers on my index cards, they are thick enough that it's not going to bleed through. However, when I'm using this look term notebook that has all my story stuff in it, these dots get so wet that they will actually bleed through to the other side of the page. So when I'm in this notebook, because the look term pages are pretty thin, I prefer to use these little dots. And this pack is not super expensive, and it comes with tons of colors. But of course, because I've chosen colors in my color code that are very common, I've got those 4 colors right there readily available. And it does have orange and yellow, and even has metallic colors as well. So I will link that for you down below. But I really like to use those in notebooks where it might bleed through to the other side. Okay, so that is the first step for me, is getting myself back into all the tools and all the fun stationery that I like. If you don't care for stationery and you don't need all these tools, then you can just skip step one. But I just find whatever you can figure out for yourself that gets you in the right mindset and gets you excited to work on your story again. For some of you, it might be that you go and you watch a movie that reminds you of why you love that genre, or maybe you read a bunch of books that are in a similar genre so you can get yourself back into the mindset of what turned you on about your story in the first place. Whatever it is, that first step should just be something that gets you excited to start working again. And for me, that's my passion for stationery. Step two, though, is to actually go back to the work. So my step two is always to head over to the laptop or my iPad or whatever I want to use at the time, pull up the document that I've already started, because remember, we're coming back to a project that we started before, and I'm going to read through everything that I have so far. This part of the process is very similar to what I do when I start editing a book after it's finished as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up these index cards, and I am going to make an index card for every scene that is already currently in the book. So I'm going to read through everything. I'm not going to edit it as I go, but I might start taking notes, which is something I can do since I'm writing in Google Docs. And I'm going to make a scene card for every single scene that I've written and just remind myself what's there, because inevitably there's going to be a few scenes that I'm like, man, I forgot I wrote that. I didn't even know that was in there. And so that's part of the rediscovering process of getting back into the story. So let's get started. Okay, after a little bit of time, now I have an entire stack of note cards here that basically have the name of the character, what scene is currently. That's probably going to change. These are going to change order, but it feels so good to have read back through everything that I have. So I thought I was about halfway through my rough draft, but I'm really more like a third when I look at the storyline. There's a lot of stuff here that I'm not really going to be able to use, I think, which is disappointing, but you have to meet yourself where you are. So I have a stack of note cards that have those point of view references on it, what scene, like what order the scene is currently, and just the main idea of what happens in the scene. So what's the main action? Harper's looking at this, Harper's having a conversation here, Jackson is heading toward this, scenario, here's how he's feeling. If there's any type of note about what's going on with the character arc internally, I've made that on here as well. So once I'm through with this stage of the process, which is kind of the number 2 stage of the getting myself back into this, here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out my notebook. So my plotting notebook can change, I've used many different versions of plotting notebooks. And of course, there's no hard and fast rule here that you have to use a plotting notebook or anything like that. But I did set this up, and I want this to be a chronicle of me writing the final book in my Shadow Demon saga. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to spend some solid time, probably 30 minutes to an hour, journaling my thoughts about what shape the story is in right now. And for me, this is the third phase of getting back into a story. I find that if I just try to jump right in and start writing, I always end up going back and doing this part of it anyway, because I need to reacquaint myself with what's happening and I need to get my mind around it. And when I'm just trying to think through my thoughts, it can feel like a big jumbled mess. When I actually sit down and write out my thoughts, I am able to get them better organized. I also find it helpful at this point of the process, since I do have a wonderful husband who kind of works as a critique partner for me. Once I've done the journaling, I also sometimes will spend some time talking to him about, so here's what's happening in the story, here's how I feel about it. But for me, once I've got all the note cards written down and I reminded myself what's actually currently in the story and what's going to be usable, some of it is better than I thought. Some of it is much worse than I thought. And so I have my notes. Now, an essential part of the process is to think through, by writing and journaling, what I feel about this, where I feel like I'm on the right track, where I feel like I've gone off the rails, where I think the story is going from here, and just kind of get that brain dump. So step number 3, journaling. So the next part of the process for me is all about making a plan. Once I have determined what's left in my novel, what I still need to do, really gotten myself immersed back in the story and the characters, I like to write out my plan. Like, when am I restarting? What are the tasks I need to do? What's my current word count and how many words do I have left to write? And then what's an average number of sprints that I anticipate I'm going to need? So if you're not familiar, a writing sprint is it can be any length of time, but I do about 20 to 25 minutes each time where I focus. And then another thing I like to do is set up basically trackers. So this is another part of the mental side of getting ready for creating and getting back into it. I get motivated by trackers, and this particular idea comes from Sarah McLean. I will link to her Instagram post around NaNoWriMo where she talked about basically creating these blocks for every 100 words that she does so that she can stay motivated throughout the process of writing. And I love that. And I've never tried it in just 100 word blocks. You can see here, I also have a sprint tracker set up where I will track every 25-minute sprint and how many words I write. And since I know that I have about 75,000 words to write, I know that on average, I write 650 words per sprint. That's a really low estimate, but I guesstimate that it's going to take me about 113 sprints to finish the first draft of this novel, which will get me about 73,000 more words. So I know that by the time I get to this page in my sprint tracker, the book should be finished. So that kind of stuff really starts to motivate me. I also like to set up these daily pages where I say what my intentions are, what scenes I'm going to write for the day, what my notes are for the day. And you can see here, I was also using that sort of pixel tracker each day. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and set up the first day. So I've been recording this over multiple days, and I spent quite a bit of time journaling, quite a bit of time really thinking about the story and the characters. And now I'm just going to set up the first day back of actually writing, because that is really the final step in the process. Once I have gotten all my tools together and kind of cleared my to-do list, gotten my mindset ready for being back in the process of writing, then step 2 was going through and actually really diving into the rough draft as it is, because we're going back to a book that we started previously. So to me, it's all about getting myself in the mindset and then writing out those note cards and seeing what I'm dealing with, what's in the story, what's good, what's bad, what am I throwing out, what am I using, making those scene cards. And then the third step there was journaling my thoughts. Now that I know what I'm working with, I journal all about it, write about what's happening with the characters, get myself back in the mindset of the story. Number 4, make that plan, set up any trackers, anything that's going to really motivate me. How long is it going to take me to finish, setting those goals and those deadlines for myself. And then finally, step 5 is just getting back to the process of writing. And once I'm at that point, hopefully I'm back in the story and I'm ready to see it to completion. So that is basically my process of how I get back into the story. Let me know in the comments what your process looks like, if there are any steps that you follow that are a little different from this. Also, let me know if you would like to see an expanded. I know I talked a lot about the stationery part of things, but let me know if you'd like to see an expanded video on what the process of actually going through the note cards and what that looks like, what types of things I'm writing down, how I'm replotting, and those sort of details. I know this was a very much of an overview, so if you'd like to see more details on how I actually get back into the writing of the story, the plotting, and figure out what parts of that rough draft I'm going to use and how I know what to throw away, please let me know in the comments. And if you are just getting back to either your NaNoWriMo novel or something that you've written in the past, I want you to know that everybody goes through periods where we feel like the writing isn't coming, our writing isn't good enough, our ideas aren't good enough. But as long as you stick with it, I promise you, your ideas are great. They are worthwhile, and we definitely need your stories in the world. So don't give up on them. All right, you guys, I will see you all in my next video, which hopefully will be taking place from my brand new house. I'll see you then.